Very warm welcome to our introduction to Nichiren Buddhism, our contribution to, well, my contribution to Housing 2020. My name's Jonathan Werran. I'm the Chief Executive of the place-focused think tank Localis, and by a roundabout way involving Lord Heseltine and a dinner talking about the future of London, I've been invited to give a talk at this session to introduce the practice of Nichiren Buddhism. I'm very glad I'm joined as helping me out in this session today. It's a man who probably needs their introduction, Andy from Bradsky. But Andy, here's an opportunity for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much, and really good morning to you. Congratulations to getting up early and joining us for this session. I really hope that you'll get something from it, and it'll help in a sort of different way to what you might be expecting from a housing conference. As Jonathan said, my name's Andy von Bradsky. Not all of you may know me. I'm head of architecture at the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. It's been a great feature of mine to be practicing this Buddhism for 35 years, and it's not often that I get the opportunity to talk about it. So I'm really pleased to be doing that. I'm speaking at the housing conference later today, and I spoke there yesterday, hope to make a positive contribution to all of your lives by speaking about my practice today. Back to you, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Andy. So we've got half an hour to talk about this life philosophy, this practice. Andy's going to share some his experience of the practice in his career. And for those who want to stay on later for any follow-up questions and answers, we're happy to field those. So essentially, an introduction to Nichiren Buddhism. What is it? Well, essentially, it's a humanistic philosophy that's based on treasuring the inherent dignity and value of the most precious treasure in the universe, which is life itself. This practice seeks to empower each person to see the value of their own life and thereby create positive changes to their own circumstances and have a positive impact on the people, society around them. Our main tool for doing this is by chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, through which we raise our life condition, changing our previously held attitudes to perhaps a more positive way of seeing and taking action in the world. About this practice, it's a form of Buddhism that derives from Japan, and it's practiced internationally in 192 countries. Where does it come from? It comes from 13th century Japan. There's a reformist priest called Nichiren Daishonin who, studying all the Buddhist texts, came to the conclusion that the Lotus Sutra contained the ultimate expression of Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching, and he promulgated this and the chanting of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo in his lifetime. He was persecuted for this, but he achieved success and built the basis of our practice. Nichiren Buddhism was sort of an offshoot of main Japanese religion. We've got it. It was introduced in the international world by an organization called the Soka Gakkai. This was established about 90 years ago by a reformist educator called Tsutomu Makiguchi, who was a geographer. He wrote a book called The Geography of Human Life, and he found in Nichiren Buddhism something that encapsulated all his values as an educator. He was imprisoned by the Japanese authorities during World War II for his beliefs in the dignity of life. But his disciple, Josei Toda, who was a teacher with him, who became a publisher, picked up where he left off. And in the aftermath of post-World War II Japan, he reinvigorated the movement until it became a very popular movement. His successor, a gentleman called Daisaku Ikeda, built on Toda's achievement to spread this Buddhism around the world. So there are perhaps around 10 million Nichiren Buddhists practicing as Soka Gakkai members in Japan, and it's a worldwide movement dedicated to peace, culture, and education. And in the United Kingdom, I think I'm right in saying, Andy, probably about in excess of 15,000 members.
Yes, I think that's correct.
It's not this movement. It's spread from heart to heart, one-to-one dialogue. So you may not have heard this coming to this introduction might be the first time you've actually heard of Nichiren Buddhism, but that's not surprising. It's shared from individual to individual, and that's how it's traditionally gone on. Our main practice is chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam is a Sanskrit term. It means to offer devotion to. Myoho is really the key to it. It means the mystic law. Myo represents what's unfathomable or unseen in life. Ho refers to the realization, what's manifest in a life, mystic law. Renge refers to the lotus flower. It's important as a symbol that the lotus flowers and fruits simultaneously. So it's an example drawn from life in which cause and effect is simultaneous, which is a core belief of our practice in chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, that you desire to see change in your life through sincerely chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. You create the causes to change your karma, change your condition, and realize what you want to see. Another key aspect to our practice is what we call the 10 worlds of life. Essentially, there are 10 potential conditions in life inherent to all people and all things. And essentially, it's how we experience life, passing from moment to moment. For most of us, we spend our lives in what we call the 6 lower worlds or lower states of life. Essentially, it's the equivalent to being stuck in a lift, but with no access to press any of the buttons. So we're more readily reacting to outside influences and really at the mercy of changing circumstances. So the lower worlds are characterized as hell, hunger, animality, anger, humanity or tranquility, and heaven or rapture. There are 4 higher states or higher worlds in life, and these are really characterized by the fact one needs to make an effort to see them. These 4 noble paths are learning, realization, bodhisattva, which is essentially being very altruistic, and Buddhahood, which is the state of true indestructible happiness and freedom. These 10 worlds interconnect with each other. They mutually possess each other. So even the lower states of life, even hell, has an enlightened aspect. By experiencing difficulties, we can bring out the courage and wisdom to show compassion to other people. So that's an example of that. And it also forms part of a bigger belief that a single moment of life possesses the entirety of the universe, what we call Ichinen Santen, or a single moment of life possessing 3,000 realms. And essentially, it says everything in our life, our minds, our body, our self and our environment, our causes and effects are all integrated into the life moment of us as individual people. So that's kind of the theoretics. How do we practice? Well, the main practice is we chant morning and evening, and we take action to be influenced by creating a higher state of life by chanting, and we study to understand what we're doing and how it can practically influence our lives. So our daily practice, Andy and I before this meeting, we both chanted Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. We also recite 2 excerpts from the Lotus Sutra, which essentially teach us that all life possesses Buddhahood and that life is eternal and it is of extreme dignity and value. So that's called Gongyo. We do it every morning, every evening. It's an assiduous practice. What do we chant to? Well, we chant to something called a Gohonzon. Gohonzon translates from the Japanese as object of supreme devotion. It's a scroll which represents essentially a mirror to our life. In thick letters down the middle of the scroll, it reads Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and outside of this, to the left and right, we have characterizations of the other states of life. I represented everything from health to learning. So essentially, we chant to the Gohonzon, our object of devotion, as a mirror to believe in our supreme dignity and our huge, immense, boundless life capacity, our courage, wisdom, compassion, and vitality, as something to be drawn out. And when we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, no, we chant for things. We're taught that desires for enlightenment, even problems, contain the seeds for enlightenment. Anything we're going through is something to be chanted for. We're encouraged to chant to set goals, to see things change in our lives, whether it's relations, finances, workplace issues. So anything in your life you can chant to create value and see your Buddhahood, see your enlightenment and how you change yourself and overcome challenges. Where do we practice? Well, we mainly practice in our homes. We have our Gohonzons in our homes, in our daily lives, in our living rooms or bedrooms. We meet, as I said, we're part of a movement called the Soka Gakkai. Across the UK, there are more than 600 districts, and every month we come together, people who practice Buddhism in our districts, and we invite guests. And really what we do is we use these as opportunities to share our lived experience of practicing Nichiren Buddhism as a life philosophy, to inspire each other, to support each other, and to actively listen to each other in a very dignified way. As part of what it does, the Soka Gakkai produces an annual peace proposal to the United Nations with practical suggestions for anything ranging from nuclear disarmament to flood relief to human rights education. And I think according to the UN, this is the largest single grassroots movement for peace taking place on a regular basis anywhere in the world. So our homes, our communities are where we practice. Aside from that, in the UK, we've got cultural centres in London, in Acton in West London, one in Brixton opposite the tube station by Morley's, and one near King's Cross, and a national centre in the beautiful settings of Taplow Court near Maidenhead at the bottom of Clevedon. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the practice is, how we go about it. But I thought it'd be very useful to hear from Andy if you could. This is a practice about our daily lives, how we use our practice to engage, change things. We're very grateful to hear from you, Andy, from your experience of practicing Buddhism and how it's impacted on your life, your work, and everything else.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan. A really good summary of the background to Buddhism. It's not unusual for us in our practice to share our experiences and to help other people to sort of learn more about this practice through our experience. I'm just building on what Jonathan has been saying. Nichiren Buddhism is not what you normally associate with Buddhism. So when people talk about it, you imagine orange robes, withdrawing from society, denying material goods, and similar to maybe Theravada Buddhism in the Far East. Our Buddhism is very natural day-to-day practice, ceremony morning and evening, which is a real commitment, but a natural part of our daily life at our homes. It's very socially engaged, it's very outward looking, and it doesn't deny betterment or human comfort. So there are all sorts of much more up-to-date sort of characteristics of this Buddhism. And of course, as John said, a wider objective for creating peace in a troubled world. The organisation uses the term trust through friendship, peace through trust, and that sort of pretty much sums up the sort of the relationship that it seeks with society, with political influences, and generally. So it's a very outward aspect to the practice. I think were it not for those sort of characteristics, it wouldn't be something I'd be so enthusiastic to take up. And to sum up what Jonathan said, Buddhism is daily life, which is one of the quotes from a previous president of the Soka Gakkai. So I just want to go through a little bit about my personal journey with the Buddhist practice. It started 35 years ago. Following a very major injury I sustained in a motorcycle accident where I nearly lost a leg, and it took some years to heal, and a very traumatic sort of experience. I'd not completed my architectural studies at that time, at the time I had my accident. And so during the very frustrating time of recovery, I had every intention to complete my studies and do that part-time whilst working and qualify as an architect. So it built up all sorts of sort of ambitions, I suppose, by constraints that I had from recovery from injury. When I did go back to my studies, I found it particularly difficult. I had real problems with the confidence that the accident had caused me physically and also mentally. And I had real difficulties in applying myself. It was quite a traumatic period. My then partner, who's now my wife of many years, introduced me to this practice at the time and suggested I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo about my difficulties. It was as simple as that. And so I was desperate to succeed and overcome the difficulties. I accompanied her to a meeting of the sort that Jonathan explained, just to find out more, just more out of curiosity rather than out of commitment. And I have to say, my first encounter in a discussion meeting, and I'd urge you all to sort of try it out, was a group of members really encouraging. It was the energy from the chanting palpable, warmth, a caring spirit amongst the members, and there was something clearly positive and warm and friendly about the engagement that appealed to me. A real strong emphasis on world peace. I think at the time there was an exposition about nuclear disarmament, and something that I've always felt very passionate about, and about the social, economic and environmental concerns also sort of resonated with me. It's also, as Jonathan alluded, 192 countries practice, and London being a very multicultural place, very multinational, which I suppose aligns a little bit with my own background, which is not just Germanic, but it's from all over Europe. So it was something that really, I suppose, grabbed me. It seemed more of a philosophy than a religion, aligned with my beliefs. Fundamentally, we all have internal potential to live to the highest level. We don't, in my view, have to rely on some external force to help us with that. But it's about how you draw that energy out and how you bring all of those higher life states to the fore and more consistently in your life. And I suppose it also tallied with my personal objective to actually maximize what I could achieve, what was my greatest potential, and how can I achieve that. And a little bit in terms of peace is about like throwing a pebble in a pond and seeing the effects ripple out. So a small influence from one individual can make quite a difference to lots of other people. So there was lots in there that really interested me. I have to admit, it's quite alien at first. It felt, it took me a long time to sort of get comfortable with the practice and to continue the act of chanting. But I took up 12 months after I first heard about it and then committed to it. In December 1984, a long time ago now, and I've persisted ever since, so now 35 years. So what did I experience, and how did that affect my life? Very tangible experiences right at the beginning of the practice, and that's very typical of what people will tell you when they start practicing. Working and studying part-time remained a major challenge, but it got easier. It took 5 years from start to finish for me to qualify as an architect, and that was to continue my studies. Looking back, quite an achievement really, the way I juggled work and the very intense study for architecture. I found a spiritual home very early in my practice of an architectural practice where I worked for 30 years. Excellent at the time in terms of the values, shared values of respect, quality, community, and I felt very comfortable. I met some wonderful, inspirational people that helped with my career. Myself and my wife received physical and financial benefits in the form of property and income. So I was promoted. There are all sorts of very positive aspects. In our practice, we call this actual proof. It's a key aspect of practice, especially when you start. The coincidences that arise from chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and the benefits that come are quite obvious and inexplicable, but they happen. So as well as chanting morning and evening, I participated in activities, meeting with other members, supporting the organisation, its members, attending courses to help reinforce my practice, to learn, study in greater depth. Over the years of practice chanting, one realises, I think, that those immediate benefits that arise are a consequence of decisions we make. So going back to the point that Jonathan was making about cause and effect, recognising that the individual causes we all make can lead to positive or negative effects in our life, underpinned, of course, by our own inherent nature or karma, which can lead us to behave and act in certain ways. And chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is, I suppose, the greatest cause to bringing out the happiness in our lives. And it's sort of realization that the actions that we take are a consequence of the effects that are in our lives. So Jonathan mentioned 10 worlds. In order to develop our highest life state of Buddhahood, we need to undergo what we call human revolution. Making deep changes in personal lives can obviously lead to much wider benefits, both for ourselves and for others. And the actual manifestations, I suppose, of chanting and with our Buddha nature are wisdom, courage, and compassion. So for me, just an example of that, the wisdom of chanting, realizing that anger is at a very high life state of mind, very quite dominant, and how do I transform that into something that's much more positive and has an energy that is a good thing rather than a bad thing. So that leads to maybe thinking about how you use your anger in a positive way to fight injustice. Compassion, the realization that helping others is essential to helping ourselves. So why do you choose to do it? So one of the greatest benefits to the practice is for me to achieve great outcomes in my career, which I suppose is the theme of this experience. Making a difference in society was always something I felt very strongly about. I chose housing when, in fact, in our profession, it was quite an unsexy and a low-grade sort of consideration. Housing, of course, now is such an important topic for society, such an important aspect of architectural training and education. But at the time, you know, it wasn't seen as particularly sort of high on the agenda for architects. I had a unique opportunity early in my career to work on estate regeneration projects after I qualified. Working in Manchester on the Hume estate, a really interesting sort of experience of working with communities, working alongside disadvantaged people and helping them to shape their environment for the future. I continue to have a strong interest in that. I pioneered that stream in our practice at the time. We had to work closely with people, and that continues to be a passion of mine. This led to a really deep interest, I suppose, in wider issues to do with sustainability, so environmental input. And again, I led the practice to develop skills in this and built a work stream within the practice for environmental issues. And again, that arose out of a passion about the Buddhist perspective of the importance of oneness of man and its environment. I've been passionate about architectural quality and the quality of what we deliver. So much emphasis these days on commercial interests, and how people can make profit. My view has always been that if you get the quality right, then the commercial aspects will follow. So quality, really important aspect of what I push for in my career. I, in summary, progressed in that 35 years from being a student when I joined FIP in Rutland Parks to become a director, and then to be chairman of the board of what was then a 400-strong practice in 2007. I have to say it was an extremely difficult period during the downturn. Again, the practice supported me during that period. When I stepped down in 2015 as chairman, we'd won Architectural Practice of the Year and a very coveted Housing Design Award, which I was personally responsible for, and we supported government on some key reforms on housing standards. So at the end of my career at PRP, I'd done what I had set out to achieve. The greatest benefit of my career is now I'm able to advise ministers, civil servants on all these issues and influence decision makers. And I suppose one of the highest accolades was to work with Lord Heseltine, which strangely is a connection to this event, because Jonathan attended one of his dinners and discussed this with Ocean Media, this event with Ocean Media. Anyway, Lord Heseltine was influential in the first regeneration project I ever worked on. And then I had the benefit of working with him on the national strategy after I left PRP. Now I'm leading on key aspects of planning reform. So it's a really interesting period. And just to finalise, sorry if it's gone on a little bit longer than you might have hoped, committing to this practice is a wonderful experience. I commend it. However, it's not hard. It's not plain sailing. It requires perseverance, constant effort, and constant challenge. I've had lots of ups and downs during the way. We all face challenges in life, and the practice is a mechanism for tackling them, turning bad situations into benefits, learning lessons from mistakes, and maintaining a positive spirit in spite of our circumstances. So I suppose perseverance is key to all of that. At the end, leads to joy and happiness, benefits those around us, and is our own personal individual contribution to a peaceful world. So I commend it to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy, for sharing your experience of this practice in all its facets. So I think we're pretty much coming up to 8:30. We've got sort of allotted until 8:30. I think that Andy and I are quite happy to stay on to answer any questions and answers any participants might want to throw to us, either through the chat function or just by switching on your camera and audio and posing a question. There's we say in our Buddhist courses, there's no such thing as a ridiculous question, only a bad answer. So please, if you want to, feel free to pose any question at us. But I thought, Andrew, this to finish us off, should we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo for maybe 30 seconds? We were advertised as doing as introduction and chanting.
Okay, you lead off. Go on.
We're going to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. This is our daily practice. It's what we do. It's the heart of Nichiren Buddhism. So bear with us. This is what it sounds like. Let's get on. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, 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 Nam Myoho Renge Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So many thanks indeed for everyone who's joined us this morning. Hopefully, as Andy said, there's something you derived of benefit from what we had to say. You never know what that might be. But no, we're open to questions now. See a couple in the chat. Let's have a look at them. If anyone,
I'd also say if anybody wants to say anything or speak directly rather than use the chat, do just put your hand up or unmute yourself. And
on the participants, you can raise a hand.
We've wowed you all.
Well, we say in the practice, don't we, Andy? Finding this practice isn't that usual, and to really want to acknowledge everyone. You have what we call a strong seeking spirit for getting up at 8 o'clock to listen to us this morning. So first and foremost, thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if there are any if there's any wish to have a one-to-one or speak individually for Jonathan and I, do just contact me through either my Twitter account or through the LinkedIn account, which you'll see us both on, and get in touch. Happy to sort of help in any way we can, really. Thank you.
Well, I think on that basis, then let's wish everyone. Thank you first and foremost to the organisers of the conference for having us on board to share our practice. Hope the conference concludes very well. You're on the sessions later today, aren't you, Andy? This is your first of two.
Yeah, the first of 4 meetings.
Oh.
Anyway, all good.
It's the new norm. Well, in which case, I think let's bow out with a huge sense of gratitude and appreciation for everyone who's made this possible. Have a great day, create value in your own way, and thank you very much indeed.